circulation for today. So the one thing that I was trying to point out is, okay, this circulation, the vessels and so forth, but we're going to come back to those. So now, taking from this part of the heart, once again, let's go through this particular slide and look at the parts I want you to be able to label. Okay, so as we look to the inner portion of the heart, all right, be able to label the pectinate muscles, the right AV, and AV means atrioventricular valve. So the right AV. Label these tendinous cords. Label your left atrioventricular valve. Now the next one. In our models that we have, which is not a lot, but these little projections that are right here and right here, they look like little finger-like projections. Those are your papillary muscles, all right? So be able to label the papillary muscle. But something that I want you to note about those papillary muscles as they're being represented here, okay? Note that they are attached to these tendinous cords. Now, papillary means like a projection, all right? So they're like a projection. And note, on the right side of the heart, 1, 2, 3. How many cusps, or what did they call the right side? Do you guys remember? Tricuspid or bicuspid? It's the tri. 1, 2, 3. You kind of see that? Okay? Because it would be attached to a cusp on the valve, which will allow for opening and closing. All right? And over here, 1, 2. Because this is our bicuspid or the mitral valve.
So like when I have patients that have like heart surgery and that stuff, they put like AP wires in, so they put them right on those valves.
They will be putting it there.
It gross.
Now, are they putting in like little electrodes or?
Yeah, it's like a pace. It's a pacer for the
A
heart.
pacer
to help
for
the
them.
heart to like pace correctly for themselves.
Okay, okay. Interesting. They're doing so much more now with, because
Yeah, it's
it
really
used to
fun
be
hearing
just
it.
one great big huge medical device that kind of like stuck out and everything, and now
I mean, it is. It's still like a big box, and we have to like make sure we're like holding it close to the patient so we don't fall in them, because that's never a fun time when you're pulling things that are
Yeah.
in their body.
Yeah.
So yeah.
yeah. So like if you've ever known somebody who's had a pacemaker, for example, they put in defibrillators now. You know, I was kind of like, what? Yeah, I'm like, that's why I said anybody who deals anything with the heart, they've definitely got my respect. Okay, because this is to me, this is just as complex as the brain. Okay, and if it's one thing, okay, to me, if you're going to have something wrong with either one of them, to me, you definitely want that doctor knowing what they're dealing with.
And we have a lot of patients who have LVAD, which are left ventricle assisted devices, so it's on the left ventricle to help them like pump the blood throughout the body, because their body can't do it anymore.
Are they older?
No, I've had people with LVADs who are like in their 30s. Like my youngest one was 35 and just got a heart transplant.
So they had some type of pathology leading up to it? Okay, okay, interesting, yeah. All right, so the papillary muscle, be able to label the interventricular septum, which is here. And then, of course, your endo, your myo, your epi. All right, so that is a picture that you'll most likely see. All right, I wish I could say that the lab for this, for the heart, because we'll have the little sheep heart that we'll dissect, okay? But unfortunately, it doesn't come to us injected, meaning that there are some things that when you get them to like dissect them, they've actually injected the arteries with like a red latex, and you actually get to follow it. They'll have the veins injected with like a blue latex, and you kind of get to follow it. And so, you know, we're not going to be that fortunate. We'll be able to see like these gross structures, these ones that are huge structures. But overall, that's pretty much all we'll get to note. Now, the valves. All right. Have you ever known someone who may have had like mitral valve problems? Who might have had to do some valvular surgery or something?
We had a lot of people, especially with people. We had like one patient who don't know with us, but he was very, very consistent with substance abuse, and he had to get his negative fixed twice.
Yeah, one of the things that they can do, and I think it's a pretty common surgery. A lot of people may end up having to get their mitral valve replaced. I don't know if you've ever heard of someone or heard of that. If I'm not mistaken, they have now made almost robotic ones. It's like these man-made valves and everything. You can also get like the pig valve that can be put in the mitral valve. I mean, there are just so many things now that they can do to help keep the heart beating. And I think I saw where somebody had 3D printed one. All these 3D printers and the materials and everything. Don't even ask, okay? I just figure by the time I get that old and things start falling apart, hopefully they're going to have something that'll work, you know? That's just my thoughts on it. So this is basically showing if we were to take a heart, okay, and if we were to create a cross section, a thick one, okay, between, they're trying to show us like being able to take it and lift it apart and look down or up into these valves. So these are the valves of the heart. Now remember, they are coated or covered in endothelium, which gets to run with the epithelium of them around them, and the epithelium of the vessels that they meet, and so forth. So the valves, anytime we have a valve in the body, because you're going to find that we have them in our veins, for example, okay, we're trying to ensure that the blood moves in one direction. That's our goal. So it's to ensure one-way flow. We're going to find that we have a valve on the right between the atria, ventricle, left atria, ventricle. As we begin to have in the right ventricle, if you look at the right ventricle, when the heart whoosh, okay, it meets these valves, these semilunars, which are represented here in the red and the blue. From the right side, the only place the blood has to go is to the lungs. So this one is termed the pulmonary. All right? Then, if you look at the ventricle on the left side, and on the left side, if you turn your heart upside down, you see those semilunars right there, and they meet my aorta. So therefore, the aortic. Now, on the aortic, they're trying to point out these two areas because, once again, I'm going to go back to the heart, not only when it pumps, has to send blood all over, okay? We got to have blood return from all over. We also have to feed the heart itself, my coronary. So, these open to coronary arteries, okay? Meaning the blood flow to the heart itself. Is everybody following me? Okay. So there's atrioventricular, the ones that are between an atrioventricle, okay? Their job, regulate the blood flow between the atria, the ventricles, ensure one-way blood flow, tricuspid, bicuspid, and with the pulmonary and the aortic, ensure one-way blood flow. Tendinous cords that I showed in the picture before, okay, connect the valve cusps to their papillary muscle. Now let's stop right there for a second. What is the papillary muscle made out of? Look at your model. What are making up the papillary muscle? The myocardium. Myocardium is what? Cardiac muscle. And cardiac muscle is what? Does what?
Pumps.
Contracts and relaxes. So, this structure that is now created from the papillary muscle to these tendinous cords attached to the cusp of the valve. What is it that the valve has to do?
Open and close.
Open, close. What do you think is going to happen with these papillary muscles as the heart contracts and relaxes? And thinking in that line, all right, because that structure is connected to tendinous cords, we push, we pull, we close, we open, we close, we open. Does that make sense? The structure of that papillary muscle, all right, being connected to those tendinous cords, and the function of those cardiac muscle cells are going to allow this to happen. But once again, it's going to be affected by pressures. I'm going to keep saying that. I'm going to keep saying that.
So, you said pressure, like all those pressures, right? Like water, all kinds of things. Talking about blood pressure. So, low contractions. Never mind.
That's okay, because you are thinking in the right line of thought. Okay? Yes, we are going to see how all of this connects to blood pressure, what we think of as the normal, the high, the low. So we're going to see how that happens. Because this fluid, blood, all right, it's going to be moving atria to ventricles, all right? We got to have the ability to push it back out through those great vessels. So yeah, we're going to see how it relates to blood pressures. So that could, the structure